What's up? I'm at the studio to work with my buddy Ethan, and we're going to work on an Indonesian cover of my parents' song Kiddo.
Ben Abraham is a singer-songwriter originally from Naarm, Melbourne. Ben spent his early years in his hometown working as a self-managed independent artist, crowdfunding his first album, Sirens. However, his rare talent for songwriting and his soulful, dynamic voice put him in the sights of US indie label Secretly Canadian, who re-released his record, as well as Sony ATV Publishing, who started putting him in writing rooms with other artists. This led to cuts on records by Demi Lovato, The Chicks, Platt, Wafia, and Kesha. Ben's song for Kesha, Praying, written with Ryan Lewis in Melbourne, is currently sitting at 500 million streams on Spotify. In 2022, Ben's second record was released on Atlantic Records, making him label mates with Ed Sheeran, Cardi B, and Coldplay. It's an album that sees Ben reconciling his deeply held faith as a Christian with his identity as a queer person. 12 months after the album came out, he was dropped by Atlantic. Still based in LA, Ben is home in Australia right now for a series of Christmas shows. This is a tradition he's upheld for many years that has grown so big it now happens in New York and LA, as well as this year for the first time at Melbourne's iconic Forum Theatre. This episode is a little different to other episodes because Ben is also one of my best mates. We've known each other for over 10 years, we've made music together, we've even shared a studio here in Melbourne. Fun fact, that song, Praying, by Kesha, it was written in the very same room that I record these podcasts from. Ben is now navigating yet another phase of his music career as an independent artist once again, embracing new challenges, including working with his parents to explore his Indonesian heritage. It felt like a good time to check in to see where Ben's head is at. Why make music? This interview was recorded on Wurundjeri land in October 2024. I acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of the land where I work and live. Ben Abraham.
Hey, buddy.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I was about to say I'm great. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've never been worse and you've
Never been
better.
worse. Never been better. Yeah. Exactly.
How are you feeling about having an anthem? Like, was that by design? Were you like, you're now the never been worse, never been better guy?
It could not be more appropriate for everything in my life at the moment, so that's fine. I don't know if I'm calling it an anthem. To me, it feels like an anthem needs to be sung by enough people to justify it being called an anthem. I don't know. You know, I think my little tiny pocket of the world knows that song. I don't know that many others do, but you know, it was just on an episode of Shrinking, the Apple TV show. So
Which one's that?
It's the one with Harrison Ford and Jason Segel about two psychologists.
All right.
Psychs. Yeah, it's about therapists, basically.
Yep.
And then it plays. So there's a nice shot of Harrison Ford on screen while my song plays. I'll take it.
Did you get to meet Harrison Ford?
That would be so funny. They're like, hey, we want to use your song, but do you mind? We're just going to introduce you to the cast and crew first.
Isn't that how it works?
Annoyingly, I didn't. I can't even tell you how much I got paid for them to use it. But I can tell you that when Love Island used a different song of mine, I got like $1,600 or something.
Woo!
Money.
It wasn't one of your songs, though, was it, on Love Island?
No, it was my cover of Paula Cole's I Don't Want to Wait.
When that stuff like that happens, does it make you just want to sit and write a cover of every single song that has some sort of zeitgeisty relevance from the 2000s? Or have you done that? Have you got a secret folder on your computer that has...
No, I don't have a secret folder, but it definitely...
The Pokemon theme. by Ben Abraham. It's just been placed in a new
I
Apple
don't.
TV show.
It's so hard. Like, you've known me enough to know that as an artist, I've really tried to carve out a point of view, and I like to think that I'm a pretty decent writer. And I really have an aversion to karaoke and to the idea of just singing songs. There's the cash grabs side of it of like, oh, I just want to see if I can ride this wave that everyone's on. But then also it just doesn't feel especially creative. Even though, having said that, like songs like Torn, I'm not mad at Natalie Imbruglia for covering a pre-existing song. So I don't know why I have this weird mixture of, I love singing songs that aren't mine because it's fun to sing someone else's song in a way as like, this is how I would sing it if I wrote it, like adapting it in that way. And I feel at war with some part of my gut that's like, this is terrible. And, and then like my most listened to song on my Spotify consistently, besides ones the duets that I've done with other artists that are bigger than me, the most listened to of my own releases is the Peter Gabriel cover, which makes sense. It's an incredible song. I don't know. It's, putting out the Paula Cole thing, a little bit of me, it's a great song. Like, she's an amazing songwriter. A little bit of me also sort of dies a little at the idea of doing it. And part of me goes, maybe I should just do that. Maybe I should do a whole album of just female written ballads from the 90s.
Yeah. You could do, let's get that playlist. Let's workshop that playlist right now.
Okay,
I'm
great.
thinking you need Michelle Branch.
You're
what's that song called?
everything to me. That one? Or
Is that Michelle Branch? No, I'm thinking, who's the girl that was on the piano on the back of the truck?
That's, no, famously confusing the two. Vanessa Carlton.
Vanessa Carlton and Michelle Branch. So give us a bit of that, would you? Yes, please.
Vanessa Carlton you'd have to interpret it, so I would move it off the piano to guitar.
Right. Yep.
And I would just have a droning guitar, ding, 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 just like a, 'cause I would fall to the sky. I would do the like OC soundtrack version of that, like just,
Yep.
you think tonight. Yeah, I would lose the riff. I would just like simplify it.
Right.
I would do remember that blog, Shit White People Like? I would do the Shit White People Like version of that.
Yep.
Which I guess that's already a song that white people like, but I would just give them the acoustic folk cover.
If you're in the OC, would you then
wanted.
also put Imogen Heap's Hide and Seek on this playlist?
Oh, I have.
Who
I
would you
used to sing. I used to sing hide and seek from my guitar in open D tuning at my shows.
way.
So yeah, easy. That's an easy ad. It's
right.
not really 90s, but we'll make a pass.
This is like
Yeah.
an A&R session. It's good.
Well, that's good. I don't have any A&Rs in my life anymore, so
You do now.
perfect.
This is going to be a slightly different episode to the other chats I've been having on,
Wait, why?
on this podcast. Because you and me are quite good friends.
Yeah,
and,
true. You can be formal. We can be formal. Come on,
no.
interview me.
Please no. Please
Okay.
no. In fact, I've been thinking that I've been having some very serious, really amazing chats on the podcast. But I've sort of had to make a note to myself, like, make sure you invite your friends on the podcast too, because I think the 5 people who are actually listening to these chats are going to get tired of hearing like really deep in the weeds, like
Sure.
policy discussions every
Yeah.
week
Well,
about hardcore environmental policy.
you're not going to get that from me.
Yeah. But so Ben, this I don't know if you've seen me doing this, but the podcast is called Why Make Music.
Yes.
So at some point in the next hour, we will paint a picture of you and what motivates you as a musician and why you care about it / do you care about it?
Great. Can't wait for those questions.
And well, I have
Great. Cue cards.
decided
Great.
I have cue cards.
How very Eno of you.
I've decided to do this differently.
Okay.
To just double down on the unusualness of this
Love
compared
it.
to some of the other chats. So I've got a series of, for people who aren't actually watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, I have a series of cue cards here that Ben can't see what's written on them. This is inspired by one of your recent shows, Ben, here back in Melbourne, that I saw you play, where you had you'd scrunched up a bunch of pieces of paper with the names
Correct.
of songs on them, and you were pulling them out at random. Is that what you were
Correct.
doing? No.
They were categories of songs, but yes, it was. I was rather than write a set, I just had there are 5 categories of songs that I've done, and I put examples are songs that I've written for myself, songs that I've written for other people, a cover song, a song that has an interesting story, and I just put them all in a bowl and then picked one out at a time.
But we're going to do that, but with cue cards. So I've written things that I think will prompt discussion.
Great.
Here, and I'm going to be really transparent because I'm trying to build.
Do they actually have things written on them, or are you just using it as a fake
No,
device?
They do.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Or you think I'm going to digitally insert?
The
text.
Later? No, but because I can't see what they say, but I will say
you're seeing the blank side.
Oh, I see. My bowl of things. I'm telling everyone now, but there was definitely 1 or 2 moments where I was like, I'm just going to play what I want to play in this moment.
Yeah, I could tell. I think maybe you even fess up to
that. It says play a new song, and it absolutely did not say that.
No thanks.
Yeah.
Or you're near the end of the set, and you're like, if I don't get this banger out,
exactly.
Everyone's going to be very upset. Now I want to be transparent with the hardcore why make music fans.
Great.
That there are 2 cue cards that I'm not going to put in because they're a bit heavier, I reckon. And I want to slot them in a bit later. They're not I don't want to pull this one out first and be like, okay, let's go. All right.
Great.
That's also my way of asking Ben, are you happy to chat about, you're a pretty transparent dude.
Super transparent.
I forgot to ask you before we hit record. You see how you go. We can edit stuff out.
No. Listen, I'm an open book.
You're an open book.
Just ask my Patreon chat.
All right, you ready? I'm going to flip one out.
I can't wait.
Yeah, and I've got 10, I think. So we'll just, some of them they can go long, and some of them we can just speed through. You ready? First one. Okay. First one. Can you read it out, please?
It says Legos, but it's spelled Legos.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Lego, the toy. Okay, wait, is this a question or is this just a prompt?
It's a prompt. Legos.
Okay.
And keeping in mind, we're talking about why do you make music, Ben?
Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, I can. So the reason that Tim has written this down, when I was early on in my music career, I must have been about 24, 25, maybe a bit older, somebody reached out to me who was working with an Australian pasta sauce company called Legos.
For our American listeners.
Yeah, that's just
Abraham stands.
Exactly for my American.
What that is. What's the
audience.
LA equivalent?
You're putting me on the spot. Paul.
What's
Newman?
the pasta brand you buy?
Is it Paul Newman who does that? Maybe he does salad dressing. But basically, it's jars of pasta sauce. So Legos were doing a campaign for Valentine's Day where somebody had the idea that people could submit their love stories and get a personalized love song for Valentine's Day, sung for them, written and sung for them by the Legos Love Crooner. And so I got this email and they asked if I would be interested in being the Legos Love Crooner. So the idea was that I was going to get paid $20,000, which at the time was the most amount of money I'd ever been given in one go. And yeah, I had to write, they had a sort of device where I didn't have to actually write hundreds of thousands of songs. I just had to write 4 versions of verse 1, 4 versions of verse 2, 4 versions of verse 3, and they could choose from a drop-down menu my partner loves sports, my partner loves TV, and and I would sing my song. And then there were 5 couples, if they had a particularly interesting love story, I could write a full song for them, which I did. And it's so funny now as a career sort of songwriter, getting paid $20,000 to write that many songs is crazy. I would never. It's it's so hard. It's not like those songs ever made anyone money, but it's worth so much more than what I got paid. But at the time, it was the best thing and the biggest thing that had ever happened to me. I did have to film, and thankfully all these videos are gone now, but I did have to film a bunch of videos as a clean-shaven, tuxedo-wearing, ukulele-playing love crooner.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember them well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And no, you cannot find them online anymore. I
thank
did
God.
try.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, that appears in one of the Coles TV ads, the down, prices are down
prices,
ads.
yeah.
And that you can actually, I had to get very crafty to find that one, but sometimes still to embarrass our friend, I will go and dig out that thing and screenshot it.
I love it.
Okay, Ben, another one?
Great.
You ready?
Let's go. Hit me.
Oh, okay. Spicy. Here we go. What does this say?
Oh, this one says Atlantic. Okay, so I was signed to Atlantic Records. They signed me in 2017, I believe it was. And I was with them for 5 years. I was, at the time that they found me, I was signed to an indie label called Secretly Canadian, who signed me sort of, I was just an independent artist. They came across my stuff, helped me release my first album. It wasn't a great fit. They were, I think they thought I was more alternative than they were expecting. And then I think they just...
Oh, Secretly.
No, Secretly Canadian did.
Because some of the Secretly artists include, like, indie heavyweights, right?
Yeah, like, so I don't know, the Secretly Group is a label group that has a bunch of people. Secretly Canadian was kind of the main label. I don't know which of these artists were on Secretly and which were on other artists within the group, but they include Phoebe Bridgers, Bon Iver. Their big one was, oh gosh, don't make me remember, but this band that actually got signed to it, War on Drugs was one of their big ones when I first signed. And they also distributed for like Asthmatic Kitties, like Sufjan Stevens. So it was a world that I thought that I was part of. But I think once I was there, they realized I didn't quite fit. Like Angel Olsen was also in that world. So yeah, it was an interesting fit. It didn't really work. And around that time, Atlantic came across some demos of mine that were floating around for other artists. And Craig Kalman, the president of Atlantic Records, was like, "Who's this kid?" So they brought me in and they were just like, "We'll buy your whole contract out." So it was kind of a crazy deal. Like they bought me out from Secretly Canadian. So I had a 3-record deal with Secretly Canadian, and Atlantic paid out the remainder of that deal and then wanted me for a 5-record deal, which I signed, put out 1 record. And then the pandemic had a lot to do with this, but basically I got dropped after my album came out. Album came out in 2022, and I got dropped 2023. So it's pretty crazy. What's crazy is that because of the Secretly situation, it took me 18 months to do that first contract. So I felt like I was in purgatory for a long time. And then finally it was signed, and then I was able to let's start making the record. Then we made the record and we were ready to release it, and I actually packed up my whole life in Melbourne in January of 2020 and got on a plane to LA, where I just started renting this house that I'm sitting in right now, and was like, this is it. This is going to be my year. We're going to put this album out. It's going to be massive. And then the pandemic hit, and it didn't come out for another 2 years. So it's so weird. I feel like my time at Atlantic feels so brief because we did so little together. But I was with them for 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, okay. Plus 18 months of contract purgatory before that, potentially.
Exactly.
Wow.
So it was a huge chunk of my career, really. It was almost my entire 30s spent in that sort of world. And I feel really mixed about it. I made a great record with them. I'm really thrilled that I got to have the experience I had making that album. And, I've had to grieve how sort of badly that did and how it feels to be dropped. And yeah, it's weird. It's a weird experience.
Well, badly by what standard though? Because if you go back to, the Ben Abraham that I met on the hill at Splendor in the Grass watching the Jezebels, and had said to him that that you would one day be able to do something like that.
Yeah.
But also because
that's true.
Yeah. But
you're absolutely right.
You know things, the industry intimately, that you can look at it and be honest with yourself and go, well, this isn't how Atlantic would have wanted this record to go. It's not how I wanted it to go. Yeah.
Well, I literally got a call. Album came out 2022. It did fine. Not great for how much money was spent on it. It was a big record. We had choir and we booked out a studio. It was the dream experience of making a record. Like there's things that I would change about it, but at the same time, I just had the best time and I don't regret any of the things we did. Maybe we didn't need to spend $5,000 on tender greens, which if you live in LA, you know what that is. But basically, I got a call at the start of 2023 from my A&R, who was the president, who was just like, so we've lost about $1 million on your project. So we just need to figure out what we do next. I'm not sure I'm being like, oh. And I don't feel, this is how the music business works. I'm not worried about someone spending $1 million on me. Like that's sort of what happens when someone partners with your business, they invest and all of you take the risk together. But yeah, I also, as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting dropped. Like there's no way they want to spend any more money on me. So.
Are you happy that you went through that experience like a little bit later in your career rather than having that all happen when you were 19? Like imagine you were signed by Atlantic when you were 19, took 5 years to make a record. It didn't go as well as everyone hoped, then got dropped and you're 24. Like, are you happy in some ways that the perspective?
I don't know, Tim.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because what I love is that I have the maturity as a human being to appreciate how the world works. I'm not resentful about how the world works. I understand how the business works. I have presence of mind to be like, yeah, this was okay. I'm okay. I still made something great. I haven't kind of gone back and retconned my record and been like, oh, it was all a mistake. Like, I'm like, no, we all calculated this was going to be a big success and it was a worthy calculation. But I'm 39 years old. So, would I have the peace of mind about my career and my life that I have now if I was 24? Maybe not. But, people are like, well, look at Chapel Roan. She was dropped by Atlantic. We had the same A&R. We had the same team at Atlantic. So I knew about Chapel Roan way back when. People are like, look at her. It's like she got dropped by Atlantic and now look at her. I'm like, well, yeah, she's also 26 years old. Like, I think if I was 24, 25, I would have the energy and the flexibility in my body to like bounce back. I'm 39, I'm tired, my ambitions have changed, my feeling about music has changed. So I don't know. I don't know what's the better version. All I can do is kind of work with the version that I got.
I believe in you, Ben. I think you can be the 40-year-old.
Chapel Roan?
I used to call you the Indonesian Missy Higgins. You can be the Indonesian Chapel Roan. I believe in you.
God, help us all.
You ready for it? I'm not going to put the heavy ones in yet. We'll do one more before.
Great. I'm already getting heavy, but that's great. Let's go.
This is good. This is what they tune in for.
It's what they want.
It's what the
Give
people
the people what they want.
All right.
Great.
You ready? Okay,
Yeah.
This is a good one. What does it say?
America.
You have lived in America for almost 5 years. Is that right?
Oh, just crossed 5 years, yeah.
Oh, shit. Yep.
Yeah, because well, technically I had started renting my place September 2019, but we were making the record. I had a mattress and a TV, and that was it, and a beanbag. And then I went home, and sort of in December of that year, I packed all my stuff up and came back January. So I've had a residency here for 5 years. All right. Are you asking me, what do I think about America? Are you asking me what has it been like to move to America? Are you asking me what should musicians think about moving to America if they're from Australia? Give me some
All
guidance.
of the above.
Okay.
What does it feel like in America right now? It's two weeks, is that right, until the election?
Yeah, it feels crazy. I have, and some other expat friends of mine who are also here from the UK and from different places, we've all kind of made a choice to just remove ourselves. We have the privilege of being able to do that from the noise. I also live in Southern California, which is a real bubble. Like, it's like living in New York or living in LA. I'm not exposed to any of the risk or any of the kind of craziness that's happening in other places, but it's of course inescapable. And Americans are so different to Australians about their politics. I live in the most Harris Walls neighborhood, but there are still Harris Walls signs on all over the neighborhood in people's yards and things, and you're sort of like, who's that for? Like, and you live in Los Feliz, I know who you're voting for. So it's definitely noisy. I've also I get too enraged if I get on, like, every now and then, just, I don't know why, I just open Twitter, which I haven't, like, posted on for years. But I just, like, scroll to see if anything's happening, and then I find myself getting enraged, and I'm like, just turn it off. So America feels a little bit like that. Everyone's a little bit like, what's about to happen? Let's see what happens. Everyone's making the joke of, like, well, let's see who gets elected in a couple of weeks. So, that's crazy. It does feel, between that and the kind of string of hurricanes that hit, and it feels like it feels like the whole world is just getting a bit tense at the moment. And as an Australian, I think maybe I'm glamorizing, or I'm rose-colored glasses-ing this, but I miss the security and sort of safety that I felt maybe living in Australia that I don't necessarily feel in America.
Just personal safety.
Yeah, just even though Australians are in some ways divided on different issues and things, there is still a sense of, like, we're all in this together, whereas America doesn't really feel like that some days. Like, it really does feel like there are lots of people in this country that really don't think that we're all in this together, and that's interesting. From a career side, America's also, it's like a big inflection point. I've been here for the kind of rise of Twitter and AI and the kind of upending of the music business, as I certainly knew it and as I grew up in it. So I'm watching, in LA, when I first was coming here in 2016, when I was doing my first songwriting trips, I was meeting all these young writers who were super excited about, like, this world. And over the years that followed, social media exploded. The persona of writers exploded. So suddenly, like, being a songwriter became a little bit like being an influencer. And then they literally kind of blended, because suddenly good social media made you a viral songwriter. And then, so the roles have changed. The community of music has changed a little bit. And then a lot of the people that I moved here with have now moved to other cities because it's so expensive. So, like, people were saying years ago, New York's too expensive if you're an artist, you got to go to LA. Now they're all saying LA's too expensive if you're an artist or a songwriter, you got to go to Nashville, or Austin is the other place. So that's been sort of interesting as well. And what's the irony of all this, the never been worse, never been better of it all? My personal community and the people, my friends, and my life, my day-to-day life, is just the best. LA's my neighborhood's the best. I live in Los Feliz. I know all my neighbors. The lesbians next door just had 2 new kids that are the best. Like, they've got little babies. The twins were born up the road. We're all in a group chat. Like, I live a beautiful, like, life.
Yeah.
In the middle of this, like, turmoil.
Chaos.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put the
great. I feel like I'm giving really long answers. I'm going to try and shorten my answers.
No, that's all good. You'll know some of these I'm going to flip, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, this is a 1 minute answer."
Great.
Some of them,
but also feel free to interrupt me and just if I
know how to do this, Ben. Don't tell me how to do it.
Great. True.
It's good to see you.
It's really good to see you. You look good.
Thank you. You know what? I've done, I think this is maybe the 10th or 11th one of these, and no one has said that to me yet.
Well, you look good. I mean it. Yeah.
Appreciate that. That's why we're friends. You ready? I'll do another
I'm ready.
one.
Yeah, great.
Oh. What does this say?
Kate Bush.
Kate Bush. Why? Why do you love Kate Bush? I'm also tearing them up. For anyone who's listening to the podcast, that's the sound of me tearing up the cards.
It's very ASMR-y.
Yeah.
I got into Kate Bush because I became friends with a guy called Wally DeBacker and a guy called Tim Scheel. And I wanted to be cool enough to hang out with those. This is the absolute truth. I was 20.
I haven't heard this version of the story, but I like it already.
Yeah. No, I posted a bit about this on my Patreon, actually, but
On your what, sorry?
On my Patreon.
Oh, you got Patreon.
Patreon.com/Ben Abraham. I 100%. So I grew up on church music. I grew up listening to Hillsong and pre-Hillsong, like praise and worship albums from the 80s and 90s. So like, and if it wasn't Christian, but a very specific version of Christian music, it was the band Chicago, and like a couple of other like Christian pop bands from the 90s. So I say all that to say irony and creative kind of genius and just like groundbreaking sounds and lyrics and things wasn't really part of my vocabulary. Not that I'm saying Chicago wasn't groundbreaking, but that world of music was not my
Hillsong
vocabulary.
and Kate Bush's Venn diagram is a very specific person.
Very, very specific.
and yes, so I can see why. Yeah.
So once I was doing music as my thing, and I just was becoming exposed. I mean, I remember the first time I ever met Wally, and he would sort of talk about all these bands. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, it's like that such and such album," and I would always just like nod and be like, "Yeah, totally." But I never knew who any of the people were. And I remember I just knew that like Kate Bush was super important to him, and then obviously I met you, and I remember like we just would talk about music and things, and so I started to be like, "All right, I gotta be smarter about this." So I bought Hounds of Love on iTunes. And listened to it, and I did listen to it. Just as she intended. Do you know what's crazy? It's not even in my iTunes library anymore. And I forget that they can do that, because I definitely bought it.
What?
Because it was it was before the music thing. But yeah, they've taken it out of, I don't even own it anymore. I mean, I have a vinyl now. I don't have a record player, but I bought the vinyl. So I bought it, I listened to it, and I just remember being like, I don't get it. This is too weird. I mean, I'd seen an interview with Wally where he talked about how cloud busting being an amazing pop song. And I remember listening and being like, what the hell is this song?
What's Organon?
It's exactly, who are these people?
Yeah.
And then years later, like maybe not that long later, but it was definitely like over a year, it just came on shuffle one day. And I, for whatever reason, and actually this was a really important moment in my music life where I've learned this about records. For whatever reason, the day that it came on, I can't remember what song it was, it hit me, and I just remember listening in a totally fresh way. And then I was like, oh shit, I have this album. And I went back and listened to the whole thing, and just for whatever reason, I had lived through more life, I had listened to more music, and it all just made sense. And it has now become my desert island kind of favorite album of all time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it taught me as well that like if there's music that I don't get, I don't force myself anymore to sort of understand it. I'm just like, that may come around at some point for me, or it won't, you know.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that music and art can like find you at different times. And even the albums that when I was younger that were so important, it's funny, I listen to them now and I'm like, oh yeah, this doesn't do anything for me anymore. Those old Hillsong albums, actually some of the old Hillsong albums still slap, so.
No comment. We're doing good. We're halfway through the cards.
Great. Oh, we're doing every card.
Oh, I think so. I think we can
Great.
probably.
I mean, I
get
got
that
time.
done.
You can edit it out if it's boring.
No, of course not. Won't be boring.
Great.
I will. No, actually, I was going to tell a story.
Tell a story. I've talked so much.
Well, it's not my story. It is Wally's story. So I probably
okay.
won't. I probably
great.
won't. But it did involve Kate Bush.
Okay.
But
Has he
have you
met
ever-
Kate Bush?
Well, it kind of involves that.
Okay, then.
And now I'm thinking maybe I'll save
Great.
that for another time.
Yeah, great.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Another card. Oh, this is cute. Okay. What does this one say?
It says Kidung.
Yay!
Cute.
Kidung. Tell us about that.
Kidung is a song from 1978 that my uncle, whose name is Chris Manosama, wrote, and my parents, whose names are Bram and Diane, recorded, and it became a massive hit in Indonesia. In the 70s, it won some kind of regional radio competition, and then it went on, it was played on radio stations all around the country, and it went on to become hugely loved. And it was then re-recorded in the 80s or 90s by this kind of Indonesian pop. My parents were like a folk duo, but then it was re-recorded by this Indonesian pop singer called Kesha. And it like exploded into like. Now I remember maybe 15 years ago we were in Indonesia for something, and one of the contestants on Indonesian Idol was singing Kidung. So yeah, it's this huge song that most young people know as Chris's song, but older people know as remember the original as my parents. So I put out a cover of it this year, partly just because as I get older, it's occurred to me how little I have engaged with my Indonesian heritage and my Indonesianness. My dad's Indonesian, my mum's Australian, but I grew up in Australia. My dad's parents died when he was a kid, so I just have not grown up with an Indonesian family unit to kind of go to, half and half. So as I get older, I want to engage more with it. And I'd done it before in little ways. I'd sing Indonesian lyrics in some of the songs that I've done. But this was the first like full Indonesian release that I ever did. And I did it because, well, I was always going to do it, but part of the impetus for putting it out this year was that I made a little video with my parents singing the song that went crazy viral on Instagram and on TikTok. And so I was like, oh, I guess I should record my version of this song. So yeah, I've recorded the song.
Super, super cute.
It's look, the video is
Also
cute.
Calculated content, viral content. I mean, you must have known.
I had a suspicion. I didn't know it was going to be that viral, but it's, that didn't translate. It didn't translate to the song.
Right.
The song has like 400,000 plays, but the video that we made has like 5 or 6 million.
Yeah.
Across TikTok. So whatever.
400,000, Ben, by the way, in the real world is a big number, but I understand from your perspective. I understand the numbers of zeros have slightly shifted for you, and that's cool.
Well, sure. When you're
no, but what you're saying holds true. Is that like a small clip that is cute and gets shared all over the internet. There is still a bit of a myth of like, cool. Well, if that happens even once or twice or 3 times, then it's going to somehow have an impact on your streaming numbers.
For any
people who come to your shows,
for
and it's just
any
not true.
young musicians and artists out there, if you think that kind of viral, the things that come together to make a song go viral is so much more than just one viral video, and it's an alchemy that is pointless to chase. And I have friends that have had it happen for them, and I mean, my manager manages Joe from Stranger Things, DJ O, and when I'm back in Chicago. That dude made one TikTok video of that. And it's literally his face being like, we got TikToked. And it's just like writing of different things. He's not doing anything. There's no narrative to it. There's no arc. There's no 32 million plays. And of course the song, one of the biggest songs of the year, 1 billion streams. So
he's the guy from Stranger Things.
Yeah, but tell that to some of the other kids from Stranger Things that have also put music out and haven't had anywhere near that success.
Okay.
So, I mean, I again, like, there's all these things that we love to be able to go, oh, well, it might have been because of this, but often it really is just random. The internet just wanted that song that day. I mean, it's a great song, but it's like one of the biggest songs of the year. It's crazy.
You mentioned, and you've talked about this many times over the years, hoping one day to reconnect or connect a bit more deeply with your Indonesian heritage.
Yeah.
What do you think that might look like, even in terms of music? Like, I know you've talked about maybe going to Indonesia and doing some recording there. What in your kind of dream version of what that is?
My dream version was that my album, Unatlantic, was going to be such a massive blockbuster success that I was going to have all the money in the world to go to the island my dad grew up on for album number 3, park myself there for 3 to 6 months, go to the home that my dad grew up in, meet the people, my uncle still lives there, meet my extended family that are still alive, write songs with local Indonesian songwriters, fly some producers over, just make it a whole thing, have different people that I love in my life come and interact with Indonesian life and with culture, and not just Indonesia, but that specific island of Ambon that my dad is from, and then make a record out of all of that. Document it all. The documentary wins Best Documentary at the Oscars. The album wins Best, Album of the Year, at the Arias.
We all want arias.
We all want to know. No, that awards aside, that version of album number 3, it's still in my head. It's still what album number 3 is all about. I think of album 1 as in some ways a kind of creative coming of age. Album 2 was all about faith and sexuality, and album 3 is all about identity and being Indonesian. So I think that will still happen. I just don't have. Nobody's asking for an album from Ben Abraham.
Oh, come now, stop it.
No, but you know what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying. Like in terms of the marketplace, like if I'm running a small business, I made a massive product. I flooded all the shelves with it last year, and nobody bought it. So it's not like anyone's going, "What have you got next?" So I have to like be. I don't have the kind of blank check that I was hoping to have. So I have to be really like small and considered about how I make the next record, which is not the worst thing. That can facilitate great music. It's just not the way that I thought things were going to go.
If you do, and things might change, but if you do still go down that path and that's what the third album is, might not be the worst thing in the world if it is a kind of more humble, intimate.
You mean if I don't roll in with my hundreds and thousands of dollars on my private jet? What are you talking about? To my dad's little tiny
You're
village?
introducing Jelly Roll to
I'm like,
your
what's
uncle.
up? What's up, Indonesia? Pow, 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 pow. It's your boy
Where's my
Benny A.
gamelans?
It's your boy Benny A. Oh.
I love it.
Yeah, no, whatever. You're right. I've talked a lot with Aussies all. I don't know who wants to hear this, but I've talked a lot with Frank Titaz about this idea, and he's quite encouraging. He's like, you should just do it. You should just figure out the money.
You.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and for your family, and you know, and for the Indonesian Australian community, which is large.
There are dozens of us.
Okay, so you mentioned a couple of things in there that are in
Great.
here. So
great. Okay,
you
great.
ready?
That'll be short answers. Great.
Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, no. What does this one say?
Kesha.
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 Now, does the S have the S is a dollar sign? Is that right?
No, not anymore. That was old Kesha.
Hang on. If I put the dollar sign in and then I'll hold it up again.
So that's old Kesha. Yeah.
Okay.
So Kesha's her real name. Kesha with a dollar sign was sort of, I guess, the persona that they came up with when she was a big pop star. My manager used to work at a management company that included Kesha's management. So in 2016, right when the weird purgatory was happening between Atlantic Records and Secretly Canadian, there was a few months where I was in LA with not really much to do because we were trying to figure out where I was going to land and what was going to happen. And I got this random text from Nick, my manager, being like, "Hey, would you ever be interested in writing with Kesha?" Now, you got to remember, 2016, Kesha had not put music out since Die Young. She hadn't put a record out in years. You know, so all we knew of her was that she was the dollar sign party girl. And we were like, oh yeah, there's something in the news about her kind of at war with her producer or something. So that was all I knew. I knew trashy pop girl embroiled in some kind of legal thing. So I was like, yes, I want to write with Kesha. I wasn't doing a lot of songwriting at that time. In fact, actually, Kesha was my very first ever songwriting session, where I'd written songs with people before, but this was the first time I'd ever gone to a studio with a producer and another writer/artist, and we just wrote a song from scratch. I had never done that before. And it was the best. It was a really fun day. We wrote a great song that no one will ever hear, but we got along really well. She's really smart. I went in kind of, remember at the time I had been with Secretly Canadian. I sort of thought I think I might be Brown Sufjan Stevens. So I'm like laughing at the irony of writing with Kesha. And then I met her and was like, oh, you're just so smart. You're so free as a creative mind. So yeah, we got along really well. And then we ended up collaborating more, and I wrote the song Praying with her. And that's been my most successful song that I've been involved in.
And because this podcast is all about me,
Yes.
you started writing that song "Praying"
That's
in
right.
this room.
In that very room.
I'm pointing over here, and
Correct. That
the
is
desk
correct.
was there.
I
It's no
walked
longer
in
there.
and out of that room singing different versions of the verse to Ryan Lewis, who was sitting roughly where you're sitting right now.
Yes, and do you remember who was sitting in that room, the second room up the back?
Were you there?
Yep.
Oh my
conveniently
gosh.
been edited out of the story.
You've
Well,
been
it wasn't-
airbrushed. My memory's airbrushed you out.
I
Wait,
wasn't
so
really
you-
hanging out with you guys because
No,
you
but
were really
so then you met Ryan. I guess that,
Briefly.
I actually do remember that. Yeah,
very briefly, but you were in the zone, and so I was kind of giving you space.
that is
And so
so
you were just
funny.
two blokes in here bashing out chords, doing that. I hope you're somewhere praying, at the top, very top of your range.
That's right,
And
that's right.
I'm sitting in the next room just going, well, they seem to be having fun. They seem like they're having a good time.
That is so funny.
Yeah. So,
Great.
I just want to insert myself into the narrative.
I appreciate that. No,
Reinsert
as well. You
myself
should. I wish we'd gotten a photo
into
of
the
all three of
narrative.
us. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's my 5% of praying? Just
Yeah.
from, what's
Just
the
from being
Nashville
there.
rule?
If you're in the room, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a specific thing, but
And if you're in the other room, it's double.
if you're in the other room,
Okay, we've got three more, and two of them
Let's go.
are heavy.
great.
They could all be heavy, or as heavy, or as not as heavy as you like. You
Great.
ready? All right, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I really am mixing them up. What does this one say?
Jesus,
Jesus, who we have already alluded to.
we certainly have. I grew up. I'm a pastor's kid. I grew up in church. I sort of went through 10 years of kind of challenging a lot of that, and I surprisingly, or not surprisingly, depending on what you believe, have landed back. There's a church that I go to in LA, and I sort of, having done years of being like, I'll never do it again, I'll never be involved again, I've somehow ended up playing music in church, and
All right.
yeah.
Yeah. Way to go.
Yeah.
Leading the band, or just
Yeah,
playing?
like basically, like it's like a small church community here in Hollywood, but it's very sweet. And it started with them. Just they were desperate for anyone to help play guitar, so I was like, I can help with that. And then it's sort of reawakened this whole part of my music making persona, or just person, that I was like, oh yeah, this actually, faith is a really big part of why I make music and what even interests me about music. And so it's sort of, that's come alive in me again in a way that I don't think I realized how much faith was impacting my music practice until I reclaimed it. And it just made even performing outside of a church context easier and better. I sing better when I'm have been singing in church, if for no other reason than I'm practicing every other week.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I'm very comfortable with all of the kind of bits that I don't understand and bits that I don't, know. And I think because I'm just older now and just really in it, it's not just that it's something that I've been raised in. This is something that I've chosen, and I've sort of taken on my own terms. And I'm also a bit I just shrug my shoulders for anyone that's listening. Yeah, so it's sort of weird. I'm in a way the least Jesus-y and the most Jesus-y that I've ever been.
Yeah.
Never been more Jesus-y, never been less Jesus-y.
You mentioned that you've sort of rediscovered faith being
Yeah.
crucial to your kind of creative process or musical process. Can you
Yes.
talk a bit more about what that means, what that looks like?
My parents had very radical conversions to Christianity when they were in their 20s. They weren't raised religious, but then became. So that was always a choice for them. And they were professional musicians at the time. So for them, faith and music were immediately fused. And then that meant that we were then brought up in an environment where music was kind of core to our relationship with faith and relationship with church. So it wasn't ideology forward, if that makes sense. It wasn't here are the 10 commandments and this is how we live. It was more how amazing does it feel when we all sing this song together? That was the kind of connection to faith. So I I just grew up singing in that context and experiencing God in that context, to the point that as I then got older and was like, okay, maybe I'm done with church and done with kind of that version of religion and things. It sort of weirdly, all that stuff hit me with my faith and the kind of walking away from it, hit me at the peak of like playing at the Grammys and like, ironically, a song called Praying.
Yeah.
Like at the peak of my like music career really opening up was when I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with church. And then, I mean, whether these things are connected or not, you know, I weirdly lost my voice. I had to get surgery on my voice and just all these things started happening. And I started having this kind of crisis of confidence about my singing and stuff. And then I just started getting involved back in church and I was like, oh my God, I feel like my voice is coming back. Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't know why, but for some reason, the feeling of singing in a room with hundreds of people, not in terms of me being up front and performing in any sense, but the sound of my voice being surrounded by 200-300 other voices, also just singing, aware of me but not aware of me, just doing their own thing while I'm doing my thing, and the kind of sound of all of that in chorus is what God feels like to me. And it's what I love. You know, like, performing is fun. If you come to my shows, you'll notice that I get people to sing a lot with me. Performing is fun, but I really love it when everyone sings together. Just because the sound of it is so magic to me. And yeah, I think that's all just because that's just how I've understood what God sounds like and what God is. So yeah, I'm really like, I'm very comfortably just reclaimed that part of my life. And I've been like writing church choruses again, which I used to do when I was in, you know, like a teenager. Yeah.
Yeah. When we all sing together, whether you're a good singer or not, like I don't know, it reminds you that you're human. Like it grounds you very much in the real world, and it equalizes everybody. It dismantles hierarchy.
It's inherently emotional.
It's pre-linguistic. It's like deeply visceral. Yeah,
exactly. And it's. I remember when I had my surgery and I wasn't allowed to speak or sing or make any sound with my vocal cords for 7 days. And then on the 7th day, I went and saw the speech therapist.
On the 7th day?
On the 7th day. And she just was like, all right, just start counting. Just go 1, 2, 3. And I started just gently copying her. And I burst into tears. And I was like, why? I did not feel sad. In fact, anything, I was like relieved that I was able to talk again. And she was like, it's because the voice is emotion. Like the voice is the vehicle for emotion and for the soul. And I think that's, you know, I feel that when I'm in a room of people singing. And it's crazy that in Western culture, we are so rarely given the opportunity to sing with other people.
Yeah.
That isn't a performative, the concept of like, oh, I don't have a good voice. What the hell does that mean? It's like,
yeah. It's like saying, oh, I can't walk good, so I'm not going to walk. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really crap at eating dinner, so I leave that to the professionals. You know, it's just a human thing that we can all do together. Yeah.
Yep.
2 to go. How you feeling?
Go. Feeling great.
All right. We're going to go with this one.
Great.
Can you describe what's on this card?
It's an ampersand. It's a ...
Is that called an ampersand? When it's
no, the ampersand is no, wait.
That's an and, isn't it? An ampersand.
No, it's called, sorry, an ampersand is an and.
Ellipses. Ellipses?
God, the confidence with which I dove into that as well. I sounded like I was trying to be so smart. It's an ellipses.
Yes.
A ...
So I didn't know what word to put on here, but when you and I met, I think you were dating your girlfriend.
Oh,
maybe?
Here we go.
Long-term girlfriend?
Yes.
And then a few years into our friendship, you came out to me, and you later came out to your friends and family and to the world.
Yes.
Now I didn't know what word to put down because we've been friends for such a long time. But when I went to write a word down to somehow get us talking about this, I had no idea what word to put down. So I put down dots.
Dots are great.
We are friends to the end, and I do not want to
I appreciate
offend
it.
you or use the wrong word. But like,
You couldn't offend me.
yeah. But you have been very public about this, which is why I wanted to bring it up. But
it's great. No, I love talking about this stuff.
yeah, tell me about how that's gone for you, because it was a few years ago that you came out.
Yes. Well, yeah, it was weird. 2022, I posted, because the album that I put out, Friendly Fire, the Atlantic record, kind of dealt with all of the questions about my sexuality and my faith colliding. I wanted to be able to talk openly about it, which is something that I've really struggled with in my life. Growing up in the church and growing up as a pastor's kid, it just sort of inevitably is a subject of conversation that you want to avoid. But I made a record about it. It's in the songs. In some of the songs are relatively explicit about it. Once you know what the songs are about. But yeah, I wanted to talk about those things, and so I was like, I really need to tell everyone so that I don't just suddenly start doing interviews about, whatever. So I posted about it on Instagram, and yeah, that was 2022, which is crazy. I was 37, and I'd never talked publicly about it. For the record, like what you were talking about with my ex-girlfriend, and when it all kind of went down, I was 28. So it had happened, nearly 10 years before.
Yeah.
And I had, to my immediate family and to my closest friends, such as yourself, I had already been talking about this stuff, but I just had never done it publicly. One of the things that's interesting, and we're kind of working backwards, I know, but that post I thought of as a formality because I was like, I'm promoting a record and I want to be able to talk about it. I didn't think it would be that profound. I was like, yeah, this just has to happen so I can do the next few things. And it's been crazy in the years since what a profound shift it had on me emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I guess that process, that concept of coming out, it's you just, especially for me, as a couple of things. One, when you're a pastor's kid, you already feel like you're a public figure and you already walk into a room and people look at you and have expectations on you. And I think that's something that I've been at war with my whole life, is feeling like people are expecting something of me. I don't really feel that now, but I certainly used to when I was in my teens and my 20s. It was the meeting point of that and having something that I really felt was at the time shameful and secret and all that sort of stuff. Just the combination of those two things. The act of publicly declaring. And what I really felt in that post I did was not so much, I think often coming out as being I am gay, I am bi, I am, picking kind of one of the categories. For me, it was less about that and more about just going, I'm just going to tell you what happened. I don't care what that classifies me as.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the story of what happened because that's true. And part of it's not me trying to avoid the conversation. There are days when I've been like, yeah, I'm gay. And there are days when I'm like, I don't know. And because the truth of it is, Ben, the Christian, and also just Ben, the human being, wants to say that all those terms are English language terms that we've come up with to try and articulate something that in some ways is inarticulable. I don't know what I'm attracted to or why I'm attracted to the things that I am or who those things or people are. It is kind of fluid and amorphous, and I get that it's helpful to be no, I'm definitely in this community more than I'm in that community, for sure. But at the same time, I also, I don't necessarily want to pick a lane that I have to then stay in for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Except,
so the ...
except
is
to
in some
acknowledge
ways
the
appropriate.
fluidity.
Well, exactly.
That's the lane,
and to acknowledge that, I'm not straight.
yeah.
Whatever that means. I'm not... yeah, there's power in, I think... it's funny. I was talking to some friends the other night. We were talking about how we hate to say queer now, just because it's become such a catch-all term. And someone said something like, I don't like to say queer now because queer people just sound like they sit around complaining about everything. And I was like, yeah, that's not wrong. But But yeah, it's been a real journey for me, but I'm really like very comfortable in just living in the collision between what my sexuality is and what my faith is and what my worldview is and the unfolding of that. And it is still unfolding. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, like I'm so comfortable, and that act of telling everyone the story, I now get to meet new people. And usually, as happens these days, people meet you and they go looking at your social media and they read all that, and it's great. I don't have to fill in the blanks. The worst bit when you're like not out in that way is when you meet someone and you feel like a vibe, whether they're male or female, and then you sort of feel like, are they going to think I like them? Or if I do like them, do they know that, how do I bring it up? I've known them for so long. It's going to feel weird that I didn't tell them sooner. It just like eliminates all of those micro coming out moments. So yeah, it's interesting.
I love you, Ben.
You also had the best response when I told you. I think I remember it being a moment of great anxiety. I remember I was sitting in that back room. I remember that you were at the door, and I remember saying to you, and you just went, "Hey!" and gave me the biggest hug, and it was the best.
I was excited in the moment.
That was in the middle of high drama with the ex.
Yeah,
it's so crude to call her the ex. She's a great person.
One more card.
Let's go.
I couldn't have. This has gone quite well with the heavy ones that's coming here at the end, like the guts.
Perfect.
And then the final one.
Oh, here we go. Christmas.
The final card says Christmas. We've talked about all this stuff, Ben, but the thing that is really at the core of your identity, it's not your sexuality, it's not your Indonesian heritage, it is Christmas.
Do you know what is funny? I can feel a little version of the future that stretches out in front of me that may exist where I don't have a particularly successful music career, but I have a really successful Christmas show that I run every year. It already is the truth. Okay.
Is that the worst outcome? Really?
No, absolutely not. So the reason Tim has written Christmas, I have been playing shows in Melbourne obviously forever, since I was first doing music. And 14 years ago, I played a Christmas show at the Edinburgh Castle, actually, was when I first did it.
Shout out to the Edinburgh Castle.
Shout out to the Edinburgh Castle. I don't know if it still exists. I assume it does.
I don't know either, actually. I think so.
And I played this little pub in their band room, and I played my own songs, and then I also did a couple of covers of Christmas songs, and I had some friends drop in and sing Christmas songs. I also had, this is true story, I had, for reasons that are not important, a box of my Lego at the venue that I was picking up from someone. And it occurred to me, wouldn't it be fun to just put little piles of this Lego on each of the tables so people can play with Lego while I play the show? So we did that. It was a hit. Show was a success. The following year I did it again. 14 years later, I have played my Christmas show in Melbourne. It has grown. Last year, we sold out 3 nights at this 450-seat venue in Melbourne. And we still have piles of Lego on all the tables. And I've had Vance Joyce come to it. Gautier's come to it. You have played at it. I've had lots of different friends come and sing. And that's always
on that list. Vance Joy, Gautier.
Well, because you're sitting right in front of me. I have to.
All right, fine. Thank you.
And if anyone's listening to this podcast, they know who you are and they want to know that information. Yeah, so it's always a set of my music, a set of Christmas music, and it's without fail the biggest show of my year. It has been for the last 10 plus years. This year is crazy because we are upgrading in Melbourne to the Forum, which is a big theatre in the city, which is crazy. Yep. Even though the math checks out, because we sold out all 3 nights last year, but the Forum's a almost 1,200 seat room for this show. So part of me is terrified that no one's going to come and it's going to lose me a lot of money, but it seems to be doing okay. And this year I'm adding LA. Well, I did LA last year for the first time, which was a raging success. I lost $3,000, but it doesn't matter because the show was great and it was a mostly full house. And then I'm adding New York this year. So
whoa, I didn't know that. Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm doing New York.
Sydney, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
So my calendar is going to be New York, LA, possibly one or two other cities. We're talking to venues now, but then Sydney and Melbourne to finish it off.
It's a Christmas tour. Does anyone?
It's a Christmas tour.
Yeah, that's
well,
amazing.
what's
All in
great
the
is-
week leading up to Christmas, or a couple of weeks.
Correct. So
before?
the
Yeah.
Melbourne show finishes on. So the
Because for
American
the regulars,
ones,
this is part of their Christmas tradition. It's part of their, like, the people who've been going to the show for 10 years, they know it's Christmas because they're at Ben Abraham's Christmas show.
Yeah. In Melbourne, it's definitely like, for some people, it's just on the calendar.
Yeah.
I feel terrible because the forum's all new to me, and I'm working with Frontier Touring. I found out after we'd announced that kids can't come, so that's been like a bitter pill to swallow. I think by next year we'll be able to fix that and go back to having an all ages show. But for this year,
why? What is that? Just it's a liquor license thing.
it's a licensing thing.
Yeah.
I'll get angry if I start talking about it.
Okay.
But yeah, so what's great about it is the format of the show is I do a set of my music, we take a break, and then I do a set of Christmas music. And in the Christmas music set, I have guests come. So that's when like Vance Joy's played a song, and like they'll either do a duet with me or they'll play their own song without me. And it's been a raging success. LA has been great. It was great introducing it last year because just some of my amazing like LA music friends were like, "Oh yeah, I've always wanted to sing at one of your Christmas shows." So yeah, Christmas. I can see a world where the rest of my year just loses me money, but Christmas is where like it's the Mariah Carey effect. What I haven't done is written like original Christmas music. So I've started like I'm putting out a Christmas EP this year. I've been working on it. That's actually why the microphone is set up behind me because I've been singing "Oh Holy Night" to my poor neighbors. So yeah, we'll see. I that's the world that I haven't delved into is like original Christmas music. So we'll see.
And
but yeah,
can we just for our Australian listeners, can we mention Carols by Candlelight?
Of course.
Are you still doing that? Did you do it last year?
No, last year was the first. So I sang on Australian Idol when I was 17 years old, maybe 18, and after I did it, Carols by Candlelight were looking for a page turner for John Foreman, who was conducting, and I'd met John on Idol, and he reached out and was like, "Hey, this is crazy. It's a very random gig. It's essentially a human paperweight, but do you want to come? It'll be $250. You just have to sit there and like hand me the scores." So I was like, "Great," and I did it for 20 years. Isn't that crazy?
For people who haven't seen Carols by Candlelight, it is an Australian television institution where actors...
On Christmas Eve.
Mostly singers who have been like dug up from the 90s, the Australian musical theatre in the 1990s, do a bunch of amazing Christmas songs, but behind...
Big orchestra,
big outdoor amphitheatre, and you can see quite clearly a lot of the close-ups of the singers. Behind them, you can see John Foreman.
And next to him
for the event, and next to him, this sort of silhouette of Ben Abraham's face.
Yes,
and it's
it
was a family tradition for us to spot Ben at watching Carols by Candlelight on Christmas.
I have had more screen time at Carols by Candlelight than most of the performers.
I love it.
And I sang at them last year, and they actually, I guess I don't care saying this, but they did talk to me about, they're like, maybe we'd get you to sing again this year. I haven't heard since they said that, but yeah, I sang not last year, the year before last, but last year was my first year off in 20 years of not going at all. Yeah, and it was kind of great. I had a great time. I just chilled out with my family.
Once your Christmas show is the Christmas event, the global Christmas event of all time, Ben, then let's just start televising that. Let's just transition from
that's
carols
my
to,
dream with the show. Now that it's at the Forum, is exactly to make it essentially like an indie Christmas show.
Yeah,
like.
Don't go to Carols, go to Ben Abraham. Or
just
you and John
because
Foreman
Carols is not about the music. Carols is about the carols, and it's they're advertising what musicals are on and things, which is great. It's fun. But this show is like come for good music and Lego.
Ben, I think we now know everything about you.
There's nothing left.
There's nothing left. Our friendship is over. So there's nothing more for me to learn. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Did we talk about why music? Did that come through? I guess it did.
I think for this episode, we're painting a holistic picture, Ben, of you as a human, and it'll emerge.
Okay.
But well, do you want to? Should we end on that? Why do you make music, Ben?
I think Well, because I don't love music. Like and I don't know if this is, I assume this has happened to me since I was doing it full time, but weirdly, I don't listen to a lot of music. I don't go to see live music very much, but it is this language that I speak better than anything else. And I think part of why I do it is because when I feel something that I love in life or that I'm excited about or that I'm sad about, I immediately go to the language that I speak the best. And so my relationship with music is much more emotional in that way. It's like I don't make music because I love music and I just want to be around music and I want to play it all the time and listen to it all the time. I more just want it to be the tool that I need when I want to communicate something. And that has become like, because I got dumped by my label and I've been like floundering independently for the last year, and, you know, my money situation has changed and I've really been confronted by the limitations of my career. It has forced me to be like, why am I doing this? Do I actually love it? And it's really interesting. A friend of mine who's an actor has just kind of broken through in their career to this. They're now getting like crazy offers for like $1 million movies. And I had this moment of watching this happen for them where I thought, what's the music equivalent of that? Maybe it's like Chapel Roan, where suddenly you blow up overnight and you have $1 million opportunities and you're touring most of the year. And I just realized in that moment that I was like, I wouldn't want to do that. Like maybe when I was 24, I would have loved to, but at 39, I think I'm actually pretty happy to just like be able to make my records, live with my friends in my life and have my little community and then like put that out in the world. And so, yeah, this is a terrible answer that's meandering, but I'm in it in this moment of thinking like, I think I make music because I have to. And, you know, that's on that.
Good answer. Good non-answer. Ben, thank you.
My pleasure. It's good to see you.
You too. And scene. We did it.